I spent 3 years in prison because of my brother. While there, I accidentally saved the life of a tycoon's son, who gave me 100 million in gratitude. As soon as I got out of prison, I immediately called my father to tell him the good news. But he hung up as soon as he heard my voice. I was worried, thinking something bad had happened at home. So I hurried back home. As I reached the door, I heard my sister-in-law, Sayelin, irritably urging me to transfer the property. I hadn't even gotten a prenatal checkup. When he returns, he should go and find a place to rent. I don't want to live with an ex-prisoner. But this is for his own good. After all, he paid for the house. Hearing their words, my hand, about to knock on the door, stopped midair. My fingers trembling uncontrollably. Since childhood, I've always had a habit of seeing my parents loving my brother more. But he was always attached to me. I was determined to take the blame. He went to jail. He can't be that cruel, right? I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. All the sounds inside suddenly stopped. Mom opened the door and was shocked to see me. Then she averted her gaze and hit me on the shoulder. Lin, how come you came back so soon? Your father just said he'd come to pick you up. His fake concern made me feel cold inside. If I hadn't been standing outside the door listening to him, I might have actually believed him like a fool. But now, seeing his hypocritical face, I was just disgusted. Never mind, it's easier to take a taxi now. As soon as I went inside the house, my brother's wife gave me a disgusted look. Then picked up an alcohol spray and sprayed it on me liberally. Quote, "Don't get me wrong, I'm just removing your bad luck." I gave a bitter smile. She was looking down on me for being an ex-prisoner. But she should remember that I went to jail to take on her husband's guilt. I said nothing and headed straight for my room. But I'd barely climbed 2 stairs when my father grabbed my hand. Quote, "Don't look, there's no room for you in this house." He had a cigarette in his fingers, and the ashtray by the sofa was full of fresh cigarette butts. It was clear that my return was irritating her. It was. "Papa, I was in jail for only 3 years, I was not dead. How is it that now I am not even worthy of a room? Your brother will definitely not believe it." Just then my brother came out of the bathroom. There was a strange awkwardness on his face. "Baya, there are so many people in the house. There are only so many rooms, how will we all live?" My heart sank seeing his uncomfortable face. I laughed coldly. "Earlier we all used to live in this house. I was in jail for only 3 years, now how come there is not enough space suddenly? On what right are you throwing me out? Don't forget that I bought this house by paying cash." Upon hearing this, he suddenly slapped me and, pointing his finger, said, "Do you think you're such a big man just because you bought a house? Have you come back home or to collect a debt? Am I asking you to return the house? You guys aren't even giving me a room." My father hissed angrily and, glaring at me, said clearly, "Listen, there's no room for you in this house. If you want to stay, go out and rent a house. We won't give you anything." I froze, trembling with anger. My heart was surging with emotions. Wow, what a thing you said. Did you? People don't take me seriously at all? Who was the one crying and begging me to admit my mistake? Who was the one saying I was the biggest benefactor of this family? Now I'm just asking for what's mine, my own room. Is that too much? Remember that time, Mom and Dad were crying and telling me that my brother studies at a prestigious university. His future is very bright, his life should not be ruined because of an accident. They also said that when I come out of jail, the whole family will reward me handsomely. I didn't need any reward. I just felt pity for my parents and I loved my brother. That's why I went to jail in his place to save him. I lost my job, sold my car, and spent all my savings. But I never imagined that in return, I would get not family love but betrayal and complete breakdown. Now, I just want my own room. But the whole family is trying to throw me out of the house. Tears were falling silently, but I clenched my teeth to keep myself from losing control. Brother, in these 3 years while you were in jail, we too have suffered a lot. Now you want to live back home. What will people think of us? Why can't you think about us? Suddenly, I shook his hand away and pointed a finger at him with an ice-cold glare. Don't forget, you should have gone to jail. You were the one who ruined the family's honor. You're enjoying my sacrifice. Living in my house, and then blaming me for not thinking about you all. Hearing this, my younger brother's face turned horribly upset. Quote, I thanked you, what more do you want? I'm your younger brother, wasn't it your duty to do all this? His careless attitude hurt me deeply. Even my parents started taking his side. An elder brother is like a father. If he does something for his brother, will he count his gratitude? Why are you so small-hearted? Solin, you're not a child anymore. Even if you have to live alone in a rented house, that's fine. Their every word stabbed my heart like a sharp knife. I raised my head and closed my eyes, forcing myself to stop crying. A sad smile formed on my lips. It's no wonder. You haven't even come to visit me in jail these past 3 years, and yet you only considered me an embarrassment. Okay, I said, from today on, I'm severing all ties with you. Don't regret it later. With that, I left the house without looking back, leaving behind a home that hadn't even the slightest trace of humanity. I wandered the streets alone for a long time. Finally, I found a hotel where I arranged to stay for a few days. I contacted a lawyer online. The house I'd bought in cash, paying a hefty fee, was in my parents' name. Can I get it back? The lawyer said. If I can prove I'm the real buyer. By showing original payment receipts, property papers, etc., I can get it back. I've always been in the habit of keeping documents safe, so I had it all safely with me. To get the house back, I hired the same lawyer to handle the entire case. After giving all the instructions, I lay down on the bed. Looking at the 9-digit balance on my phone, I fell into deep thought. I want the entire family to agree to today's decision. The next day, I went straight to Vila's sales office. Taking advantage of the promotion, I spent the entire 100 million in one go, and bought 10 fully furnished villas in cash, keeping one for myself and renting out the remaining 9. The rent from those 9 villas alone was bringing in more than enough money each month. A month later, I got a call from my father. Are you crazy, Sonal? How dare you file a lawsuit against us? Did you really just serve jail time? That's why you're so clever? I could see my father's face red with anger from the other side of the phone. I just smiled slightly and said sarcastically, didn't you teach me all this? I want this house back, not because I need it, but because I don't want ungrateful people like you living there. I ignored his insults. With that, I hung up. As soon as I put the phone down, I heard a knock on the door. I opened it and there stood a very sexy and beautiful girl. Quote, hello, landlord, I'm the tenant of Villa number 2. My name is Subong Anawan. I vaguely remembered her. She was the first tenant who rented my villa. The deal went very smoothly. She signed the contract right away. I looked at her with a calm expression. Quote, there was something to do. Subhan gently pushed his hair back, his cheeks slightly red, and his eyes were full of pleading. Quote, my housewarming party is tonight. My classmates want to meet the millionaire landlord who bought 10 villas at once. Can you come and support me? I remained silent for a moment. Seeing this, Subong Huan hurried over. She gently grabbed the edge of my sleeve and shook it, saying softly, landlord, please, I beg you. I've told them we're very close. Can you help me? With that, she folded her hands and looked at me with her head slightly tilted. I melt easily in front of soft people, and after her request, my remaining hesitation vanished. Finally, I sighed and agreed, okay, I'll come over tonight. Hearing this, Subongwan's eyes lit up, and she left, jumping with joy. At 7 p.m., as promised, I arrived at Subongwan's house. Just as I was about to go in, I heard a familiar voice from behind. Senlin, you followed us all the way here. I looked towards the voice. It was my younger brother, Sunidin, and his wife, Silent. Upon seeing me, her face suddenly changed. Her eyes were filled with disgust. Golden. Confused, she looked at me and my brother. You guys know each other? Quote, bang, this is my husband's ex-prisoner, his older brother. He doesn't do anything all day, just thinks about seizing our property. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone's eyes were fixed on me. Their gazes filled with disgust, curiosity, and mockery. A heavy pressure fell upon me. Hearing her lies, I clenched my fists, my heart calm. A shiver ran through me, while I stared at my brother as if he were a clown. First, I have no interest in stalking you guys. Second, I became a convict because I served time in jail in place of your husband. Third, you insult me by calling me an ex-prisoner. But you refused to let me leave my house. So tell me, who is the shameless one? My words were so harsh that people's eyes focused even more on my sister-in-law. Sensing the crowd's various glances, my sister-in-law furrowed her eyebrows and said suspiciously, Sayelin, don't talk nonsense. That house belongs to Sunidin. What does it have to do with you? Anyway, the lawyer's notice has arrived. I hope you'll be this stubborn in court too. You'll keep being so stubborn, brother. I know you just got out of jail and you don't have a place to live. But we kept that room for our baby. We're family. Do you have to make such a fuss? I looked at him coldly. The more I listened, the more my heart froze. I really couldn't understand how that little boy who always followed me around, calling me big brother, ended up throwing me out of my own house. Why didn't you remember we're family then? Just a moment ago, when your wife was insulting and humiliating me in front of everyone, why didn't you say we're family? Sayelin noticed everyone looking at us, but instead of feeling embarrassed, she became even more arrogant. She looked me up and down with disgust and said, Sentin, this villa was bought by a billionaire landlord. Are you planning to create a scene here? Her voice was high, her tone arrogant. As if she herself owned the villa and I was some rat who had sneaked in. Hearing this, the people present there looked down at me and started mocking me. Just then, Swan Wan stood in front of me, her eyebrows furrowed. Quote, Sialin, isn't there any misunderstanding between you guys? Misunderstanding? Absolutely not. Senton, I advise you to get out of here right now. The millionaire landlord is about to arrive. If you upset him, you won't even know how you'll die. Led by Sialin, everyone began mercilessly spewing their hatred at me. At that very moment, I finally saw their true ugly faces. Subhan, who had been confused until now, turned even paler as she heard Sialin's words. She couldn't take it anymore. She suddenly stood in front of me, trembling with anger. Quote, Sialin, shut up. Mr. Sinedin is my guest. If you defame him like this, you're not welcome here. Leave right now. Sialin angrily pushed Songhwan, then haughtily walked over to us, her face filled with contempt. I immediately grabbed Swangwen. A strange pain radiated from my stomach. The people closest to me were insulting me. But Swangwen stood there to protect me. And who are you to throw us out? You're not some millionaire, he's the one who's leaving here. Yes, Bangan, did he fool you? I'm just explaining it for your own good. Yes, be careful, he might take advantage of you. Subangan glared angrily at my brother and his wife. His breathing heavy. You're the ones leaving here. Senton said, the same millionaire landlord who bought 10 villas at once. Subangan's voice wasn't loud. But in the silence that engulfed the hall, it struck everyone's hearts like a hammer. All the noise suddenly vanished, it felt as if the air had frozen. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. The mocking smile on Sialin's face didn't have time to disappear. She froze in place, her eyes wide, and she stared at me, her body trembling slightly with surprise. This cheaply dressed man, the ex-convict just out of jail, couldn't connect. Bangwan, you're kidding, how could he be the owner? He doesn't even have a place to live. No, he is poor. Standing aside, Sinedin had turned white like paper, as if all the strength of his body had gone. The hand which he was holding Sialin hung loose and down. He knew me very well and I also knew him. He did not see anger in my eyes. Only such coldness was visible as if I was looking at a stranger. That same coldness was filling him with such fear, which he had never felt before. Baya, what is happening? Where did you get so much money from? I didn't answer his question. I just stood there, feeling the gaze that had previously been condescending, now filled with respect, curiosity, and shame. It was a strange feeling. The social status that money bestows was fully revealed in that moment. I looked at the family members I was once willing to sacrifice everything for. But even seeing them break down didn't bring me the joy of revenge. Only an endless sadness. Subangin Huan immediately sensed the tension in the atmosphere. She didn't step back, but instead took a step forward, standing directly next to me. Her small movement clearly declaring her position to the entire hall. Sanatan, the Sialin contract, I signed it myself with Mr. San. Since you're not respecting my special guest, you're not welcome here. Please leave immediately, don't wait for security to arrive. Sialin opened her mouth as if to make another scene. But the moment she met Subanguwan's cold gaze, and the accusing glances of everyone around her, her last vestiges were shattered. She awkwardly grabbed her branded bag. The same bag she had bought for me with the money that had now become her biggest taunt. Sinedin bowed his head. He didn't dare look at me even once. Then, carrying the broken Sialin, he left the villa in embarrassment, under everyone's gaze. The automatic door slowly closed, letting those greedy souls out. The party music started playing again in the darkness of the night, but now everyone's eyes had turned towards me. I knew this was just the beginning. The house they had occupied, the respect they had trampled underfoot, I was going to take it all back, one by one. Meanwhile, even after being evicted from the villa, Sialin and Sinedin hadn't realized their mistake. Instead, they were hiding in an old rented apartment, gritting their teeth while staring at their phone screens. Sialin was scrolling through the morning moments again and again, her face twisted with jealousy. She couldn't believe that the ex-convict she used to trample underfoot had suddenly become a millionaire. By what right? How could a worthless man who had been in prison deserve to live in a villa? Surely his money isn't legal. He might have done something dirty in prison. His wife has now hired a lawyer. Our house might not be safe now. If he can't, she won't be able to enjoy what I can't have in peace. He didn't care about his reputation. I'll destroy him completely. Then I'll see if he has the courage to live in Villa Colony. Sialin was typing rapidly on her keyboard. Soon, a post appeared on her screen, distorting the truth and inciting people's emotions. In her story, I had become a devil who had lost all humanity after being released from prison. I not only wanted to take away my elderly parents' retirement home, but was also violently threatening my younger brother. The article was titled, "Searching for Lost Humanity. A criminal brother released from jail, pushing an entire family to the brink of destruction." The article went viral on local forums. Internet users, unaware of the truth, began abusing me with the venom of those comments. I was sitting in my large study, looking over property documents sent by my lawyer, when my phone started vibrating like crazy. Countless calls were coming from unknown numbers. As soon as I picked up, all I could hear were abuses and threats. I hung up and smiled coldly at the private messages constantly streaming on my screen. This level of cyberbullying was nothing compared to what I'd endured in jail. Just then, Subhan came in with a tablet in her hand, her face paler than the previous night. She ran straight to me, showing me the trending list on her tablet, and in a panicked voice, she said, "Mr. Sen, quickly, Sailin and the others are live streaming on the internet, portraying themselves as victims. Now everyone is abusing you. They've even posted your exact address." I said in a calm voice. I was hoping, what do they have left besides these tricks? On the screen, Sailin was looking at the camera in tears. While Sailin bowed her head, he sighed as if he were a homeless victim. The live chat comments were coming in so fast that it was hard to read. Everyone was abusing me, some even writing, "We'll go and teach him a lesson." On the screen, Sailin was crying loudly, saying, "Can anyone understand me? We took care of this house for 3 years, and as soon as he came back, he threw us out. We have children. How can he be so cruel? This is a disgrace to the family." Subhan looked at me nervously. Quote, "Mr. Sen, you have to clear the search, or your reputation will be completely ruined. Even the neighbors are misunderstanding you. There's no rush to explain. Let them squirm a little longer. The higher they climb, the harder they fall." I didn't let the internet comments affect my mood. On the contrary, I was in a cold silence. I dialed my lawyer's number. My voice was calm, but the authority was clear. Quote, "Lawyer dear, all the evidence on the internet has been collected, including the accounts that are deliberately defaming me." The answer from the other side of the phone came, "Don't worry, Mr. Sen. All the defamatory rumors and rights violations have been officially notarized. All you need is your order. They won't just have to pay compensation, they could also face criminal charges." Watching his hypocrite face on the live stream, the last remaining hope of family affection in my heart vanished completely. Quote, "Since he chose this path, I'd give him a big gift too." I closed the tablet, went to the large window and stared at the quiet article. For me, the storm raging on the internet was just the beginning of his downfall. The online comments were spreading like a plague. Even the neighbors in the village colony were on alert. People stood in small groups, pointing fingers at my house. Their eyes were filled with suspicion and scrutiny. At that moment, my parents, led by Sanidin, arrived at my door, shouting loudly. They held an old, broken loudspeaker and looked as if they were going to stay there permanently. "Sanidin, get out now. You ungrateful son, you live in such a big house and yet you let your father live in a rented house. Don't you have any conscience left?" My mother sat down on the floor, wiping away tears, and slapped her thigh. Quote, "Come on, everyone, look, my eldest son has changed since he got out of jail. He doesn't even recognize his own mother. And, on top of that, he's filing a lawsuit against us. Does this even happen in this world?" I opened the door, and I went out, watching the absurd drama unfolding downstairs with calm eyes. The whispers of the neighbors grew louder, but I felt a strange peace inside me, even a kind of relief. "Papa. Mom, I gave you a chance. I bought that house with my own money. I never said you couldn't live there. You tried to evict me earlier. The house is in my name. He's mine, now that you have the money. So buy a bigger house than this and also apologize to your brother." I looked at his greedy face, then turned my gaze to Sanidin, who was hiding behind me. He was recording everything on his mobile phone. It was clearly visible that he wanted to get more sympathy by posting it on the internet. I smiled slightly. "Record it well, the more proofs there will be. The judge will deliver his verdict as quickly as possible." Sanedin's hand was trembling, a glint in his eye. For a moment, he felt a flash of guilt, but the very next moment he composed himself and started right chessing again. I started acting in front of the phone camera, pretending to be my parents a little. They continued to create a ruckus for a long time, then the security guards forcibly removed them from there. The whole became quiet again. I was sitting on the sofa. The phone was filled with endless abuses. While watching, I was also repeating the details given by the lawyer in my mind, when Subhan came to the door. She knocked and came in. She had a bowl of hot noodles in her hand, and her eyes were filled with tears. The worry was palpable, as if he feared that these rumors and slander would break me completely. "Brother Sen, eat something first. Don't take what people outside are saying seriously." The truth will come out sooner or later. Thanks Banguan, I am not that fragile. The prison years were much more difficult than this. I started eating noodles comfortably. Subonganwen sat in front of me, silently watching me. His unconditional trust seemed so precious in these evil times. But I think your parents aren't going to give up so easily. Maybe they will create trouble tomorrow. Do you really not want to make the proof public right now? Let them do the drama. The more noise they make, the easier it will be for them to get legal help. I am in no hurry to counterattack by engaging in provocation and defamation. I'm just waiting for the right moment, a time when all the lies are completely exposed to the sun. May such an opportunity disappear when those attackers have no place to hide. Chandni. Cold air was coming in through the window. Falling on the legal documents, I picked up the pen and signed my name to the last power of attorney I had in this long night. I didn't feel angry. Rather, I felt more clarity than ever before. I knew that justice was mine. He is coming to me step by step, and those greedy people will finally pay the price for their actions. Online insults had reached their peak. Growing audiences in Silent live streams, and seeing the donations coming in continuously, I was overjoyed. In his eyes, those weren't insults, they were just plain cash, and Santon was sitting next to him. Although there was still a bit of uneasiness in his eyes, but in the greed for money and fame, his remaining consciousness also gets destroyed. I was done, dear. Look, everyone is abusing that ex-convict. When his reputation is completely ruined, then we will put pressure on the media. Those 10 luxuries will be ours sooner or later, Suniten said in a low voice. Wife, we even put that old prison admission notice online. What if he turns around and says that I served jail time in his place? Counterattack? Based on what evidence? All the evidence has disappeared long ago, and then mom and dad are on our side. Who will listen to an ex-convict? At the same time, villain, in number 2's study room, I was watching Silent's zigzag live stream. Face was watching silently. Swangwen was standing behind me, holding the tablet tightly. He was angry, his breathing was fast. Brother Sen, these people are very cruel, they lie so big. How can we make it? Can we really not clarify anything right now? Relax them a little. Let me fly in the clouds for a while. The higher you go, the more pain you will feel while falling. I have opened the window. I looked at the dark sky outside. I could feel nothing in my heart, this blind madness. It was just the flash before the storm. The next morning, Sayalin walked out of her room without the slightest shame. She arrived outside the villa with a group of parents and social media bloggers. The entrance to the school was ostentatiously blocked, with cameras and microphones placed everywhere. As if to not miss any dramatic moment, my mother sat at the main gate with her thighs. She started crying loudly while hitting her hands on the floor. Her screaming voice stopped even the nearby neighbors. Everyone take a decision, she shouted. My elder son has become a beast after coming out of jail. He is his. He wants to throw his parents out of the house. On top of that, he also wants to snatch his younger brother's property. He will agree only after sending us old people to the grave. Journalists were moving forward like sharks who had smelled blood. Their microphones were almost up to my mother's face. Meanwhile, Santon was pretending to be weak. He was grabbing tissues from time to time, but his eyes were repeatedly peeking inside the villa. I opened the main door and stepped outside. The sun was a bit harsh. As soon as people saw me, the crowd immediately erupted. The questions, full of abuse and accusations, came pouring in like an avalanche. Enough is enough, Sayalin, you finally dared to come out, a shameless person like you. Do you have the courage to show your property papers in front of so many journalists? Suniten was hiding behind the crowd. He didn't even dare to look me in the eye. I saw these so-called family members, who were acting as victims in front of the cameras. I just felt disgusted. I will definitely show the property papers. But still not, and I want all journalists to be witnesses. Made so that when the truth comes out, everyone can see who was lying. The whole atmosphere suddenly became strangely quiet. My mother suddenly stopped crying and looked at me in surprise. A slight panic shone in his eyes. Silent screams in the journalists' cameras. I did not hastily defend myself in front of. Instead, I pulled out a few perfectly arranged notebooks from the inside pocket of my jacket. Those papers were shining in the sun. Those were bank transfer records and account transactions from the purchase of the house 3 years ago. I handed the copy to the journalist standing in front. As soon as he looked at the amount and the name of the payer, the excitement on his face instantly turned into a look of relief. Nearby reporters immediately gathered closer, and the clicks of cameras began to whir continuously. 3 years ago, I made the full payment for this house in 3 installments. A total of 42,000 rupees per pay was debited from my personal account. My mother, who was still sitting on the floor and making a fuss. Suddenly he stopped crying, stared at the papers. Then he looked at Suniten standing behind him with pleading eyes. Sunetin's face turned pale. So what if he instinctively stepped back a little in the crowd? The property title is in the name of mom and dad. You're just dreaming, there's no use regretting now. Journalists began whispering amongst themselves, and public opinion was slowly shifting. I saw Sayelin's forced arrogance and I just laughed. He thought the law only looked at titles. But he did not know that complete evidence. The chain is enough to shatter all his dreams. Lawyer Yan. Please explain to this madam that legal holding. What is the difference between by representation and illegal occupation? Lawyer John, standing aside, adjusted his glasses, opened the file in his cold professional presence. The entire noisy atmosphere was immediately silenced. The confrontation was still going on outside the gate, but I turned and went back to the living room. Subongganwen gave me a glass of hot water. Her hands were still shaking slightly. It was clear she was frightened by the previous madness. Brother Sen, they haven't left yet, and Sayelin is probably calling around to get more people. I took out my phone and opened the private message sent by Sanidin. The brother who always hid behind women because of the pressure at the gate. I was finally breaking down, the voice message clearly audible with soft pleading and deep fear. Brother, please take back those bank records. If the company finds out that I took this house from you, I will be ruined. I heard the message but didn't respond. Only then do people like Sanidin remember that I am their brother. When their own interests are threatened. I turned off the phone, looked out the window. While my parents were acting like victims in front of the cameras, he unhesitatingly sacrificed 3 years of his elder son for the future of his younger son. He had done it, and now, for the sake of his younger son's house, he wanted to defame his elder son forever. For him, family affection was just a bargaining chip. Sayelin outside probably received another call. Her face suddenly turned pale. She looked up at the second floor of the villa in fear and almost dropped her phone. I understood. Lawyer John's second legal warning had reached his phone. The real mastermind of cyber violence was now finally feeling the cold shoulder of the law. Just as Santon was about to start another drama by shouting again. A black Rolls-Royce slowly stopped outside the crowd. Its number plate had special repeated numbers. The appearance of that car silenced the entire noisy environment in an instant. Even the most aggressive bloggers lowered their stabilizers without a second thought. The car door opened and a young man with an imposing presence stepped out. He was wearing a high-end custom suit. He ignored the shocked looks around him and walked straight towards me. As I stood on the stairs, in front of everyone's disbelieving gaze, he hugged me and said, "Brother Sen, I heard you're having some troubles after getting out of prison. Do you need help?" I smiled slightly. "Young Master Lin, it's just some family matters, but how did you know?" This young man was none other than the only son of the richest Lin family, Lin Chen. The one I saved in prison 3 years ago. His presence was like an invisible slap to the face of everyone present. Young master of the Lin group, impossible. How could he know an ex-convict? Lin Chen looked at the crowd coldly. Convict, he had saved someone's life and served the sentence in place of some cowards. Who didn't have the courage to take responsibility for their actions? I've sent the files of the accident from 3 years ago to the Allée de lawyers for investigation. The truth will be revealed soon. Upon hearing the word, truth, Sanidin, who was hiding in the crowd, suddenly trembled. The strength left his legs and he fell straight to the ground. The thing he feared most had finally happened. The evolution of the wealthy Lin family meant that the edifice of lies he had built his entire life was about to collapse. As soon as Lin Chen arrived, the reporters immediately changed their target. They were no longer asking him why he was expelling his parents. They were now frantically asking about the suspicious points of the 3-year-old accident. The center of the storm had now become Sanidin. Meanwhile, inside the living room, the top-tier legal team brought in by Lin Chen was now in full public view. Communication had been brought under control. Swangin was busy serving me tea and water. Seeing this sudden support, the worry in her eyes finally vanished, replaced by admiration. Brother Sen, you were so naive back then. It wasn't worth sacrificing anything for a family like this. I smiled slightly. At that time, I thought family was everything. Now that everything is clear, I feel a strange sense of relief. Just then, my phone rang. It was Papa calling. This time, his voice was devoid of the previous arrogance and abuse. Only a broken, pleading voice. "Xiao Lin, please tell young Master Lin to stop. If he gets sent and arrested, our entire family will be destroyed. He's your own brother. How can you watch him ruined?" I replied coldly, "Papa, I've already served 3 years in prison for him. We've settled the score. Now, he can take care of his own life." With that, I hung up and blocked his number. Outside, Sanidin was surrounded by scores of reporters, with no escape. His face, once filled with superiority, was now filled with utter desperation. I watched the chaos from the window, but my mind was preoccupied with the next step. Taking back that house was just the beginning. I wanted him to understand. Dignity and family affection aren't mere chips they can use at will. Lin Chen's intervention was like a deep-sea bomb that blew away the last shred of hope for the Shin family. When news broke that the police had taken Senton away to cooperate with the investigation, my parents, who had until then dreamed of becoming rich as influencers, were completely shattered. This time, they didn't bring reporters or loudspeakers. They reached my study door, leaning on each other like two empty puppets. My father's hands, which had always risen to curse me, were now shaking violently. His voice was hoarse and almost begging. Quote, Xiaolin, please, just say a word to young Master Lin. The matter of that year can be buried. Your brother is his child, he can't go to jail. I looked at the deep wrinkles on his forehead, but didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy. These few days had wiped away any remaining gratitude for this family. Suddenly, my mother knelt on the ground. She sat down and cried loudly. Sholan, my mother begs you with folded hands, just let your brother go. We don't want the house. We'll return to the village and farm. I said softly. Okay, that house has always been mine. As for Senton, the law will give him justice. Not me. My mother's cries echoed loudly in the silence of the study. I closed my eyes, and my mind conjured up a face before going to jail. Full of hope and family love. Back then, I thought it was my duty to protect my family. But I didn't know that that stubborn love would become my shackles for 3 years. After Senton's arrest, Sholan finally shed her hypocrite mask. She knew everything was over. Before the court's forced execution, planned to sell and move everything in the house. The sofa was torn apart, the expensive lamps were half opened, and even the decorative paintings on the walls were destroyed. She angrily ripped them off, like a frightened hunting dog, trying to grab every last piece of meat before losing its territory. Quote, this second-hand furniture however you can sell. As she frantically removed her belongings, Lawyer Jan arrived at the gate with some uniformed court staff. Seeing the clutter inside the house, Lawyer Jan frowned. Mrs. Asia, according to the court's seizure order, all the fixed facilities and accessories of this property are protected. Your actions fall under intentional property damage. Cielin, screaming like a mad woman, lunged at them with scissors. Get out of here. This is my husband's house. That ex-prisoner Singli has no right to take it. I'll demolish it, but I won't give him even a single brick. Court staff quickly rushed to catch her. Cielin fell on the dusty floor, carrying the belongings she hadn't yet taken. Seeing him, she let out a painful scream. I stood in the shade of a tree in front of the old house, watching as all the things that had once been a part of my life were being sealed one by one. This was the house I had bought with my own hard work, in which I had invested all my dreams for the future. But now, as I watched it being destroyed by Cielin, for the first time, I felt a strange lightness in my heart. If some things are not completely destroyed, a new life can never truly begin. Court seals were now everywhere. Cielin was taken in for investigation under the suspension of property damage. The hallway, once bustling with noise, was now as silent as a tomb. Only my elderly parents remained, as if their souls had departed. They sat broken on the cold stairs. I looked at the security door, which I had personally selected and installed. Its paint was now peeling, just like the fragile family ties of this house. My father raised his head. His dim eyes no longer held the authority of before. Only endless regret remained. His voice was heavy and she was trembling slightly. Sholan, are you really going to destroy us completely? Your brother is suffering inside, and you're here to take away his house? Have the dogs eaten your conscience? I looked at him calmly. Dad, I dug out my conscience 3 years ago in jail. I'll renovate this house, but from today on, I won't let you guys set foot here. Hearing this, my mother was about to break down and cry again. But a soft yet strong hand stopped her. I don't know when Subongan appeared at the end of the hallway. She was wearing a professional suit and holding several legal documents. She greeted my parents politely. But there was no room for argument in her voice. Uncle, Auntie, I am Mr. Sen's personal assistant. The entire legal process for further handling of this property has been completed. If you people create further disturbance, then I will file a personal rest training on order on behalf of Mr. Sen. My parents were completely stunned by her professional presence. It was her habit to create drama at home, but they were scared of educated people who spoke the language of law and rules. I was a little surprised to see her and asked, "How are you here?" Subongwen smiled slightly. Young master said, "You need someone who understands loss and is detail-oriented." So I volunteered. Brother Sen, you don't need to do some of the dirty and tough work yourself. Let me do it. I looked at her, and a warmth spread through my heart. When everyone had written me off, this girl, who was initially just my tenant, had now become my strongest support. Although I had taken the house back, Cielin hadn't completely disappeared. Taking advantage of the bail period, she had gained access to Swangwon through various contacts. She thought Swangwon was just a temporary employee I had hired, so she decided to bribe her to break my defenses from within. Sailin sat on the other side of the table. Even her makeup didn't hide the tiredness in her eyes. She took a bank card from her bag and slowly slid it towards Swangwon. Her voice was low, but the greed in her eyes was clearly visible. Benga, please make the original sales contract disappear. So, the 5 lakh rupees from this card will be yours. Subongan calmly took a sip of coffee, put down the cup, and a contemptuous smile appeared on her lips. She looked at Sailin as if she were looking at a clown. Mrs. Shia, you probably have some misunderstanding. I am not Mr. Sen's employee. I am his business partner, and your entire attempt to bribe me to destroy the evidence has been recorded. Sailin's face immediately turned pale, and she stood up in shock. You bastard, how dare you betray me? Don't get fooled by his dirty money, he's just a useless ex-prisoner. I came in through the door and saw her broken state. She was once my sister-in-law. I even thought of buying a car and a house for her. But he chose the most greedy and evil path. I looked at him, my eyes filled with only disappointment. Your last chance too. You ruined it with your own hands. Lawyer Zahn is waiting downstairs. Regarding bribery and evidence tampering, now explain these things to the judge. She collapsed on the chair, her lips trembling, but no sound came out. The sunlight from the private room window was falling on his face. But she couldn't illuminate the darkness within him. I turned my head and looked at the actor, who winked at me. The silent understanding between us was clearly felt in the air. In this battle of greed and betrayal, the outcome was already decided. But the real reckoning had just begun. After Sailin was taken away, my father, who had been able to hold himself together until now, he suddenly fell ill, lying on a hospital bed, a towel on his forehead. And he kept muttering Sanatan's name. I knew this was his last emotional blackmail to make me withdraw the lawsuit. When I entered the room, my mother was sitting beside the bed, wiping her tears. Seeing me, she didn't jump to abuse me like before. Instead, trembling, he grabbed the hem of my dress, his eyes filled with blood. Sholan, your father's heart can't take it anymore. Doctors are saying that they should not give him any more births, to save this family from breaking apart. Forgive your brother and Sailin. I slowly freed myself from my clothes. My voice was so calm, it didn't even show any emotion. Mom, when I went to jail 3 years ago, my heart was broken too. Who forgave me at that time thinking about the family? My father, lying on the bed, suddenly started coughing loudly and pointed towards me with a trembling hand. I wanted to say something, but couldn't speak. I looked at him, but there was no anger in my heart. It was just the fatigue that comes after understanding the truth of the world. You worthless son, do you want to kill me? Sailin, you interrupted me. The doctor said you just have high blood pressure, nothing serious. This acting can be useful in front of journalists. But it's not up to me anymore. I walked out of the hospital room. I could hear my mother's desperate cries from behind, but I didn't turn around. The hospital drama couldn't stop the pace of my life. I sat in the rocking chair on the terrace, looking at the quiet article in the distance. Just then Swangguan brought 2 cups of fresh coffee and gently placed them on the table. His actions were so natural, as if we had been together like this for a very long time. During these days, he handled a lot of legal documents and social troubles for me, due to which I was able to get out of that quagmire of family matters. Brother Sen, young Master Lin has completed all the proofs of the accident that year. Now it has been officially confirmed that Sanetan made you a scapegoat. The final sentence will be pronounced soon. I nodded slightly. We should go where he needs to be. He should have taken up the same responsibility 3 years ago. The condition of Sanetan in the detention center was not good. Now there was neither the protection of parents nor the fake arrogance of Sailin. His temperament, spoiled since childhood, will make him suffer further from there. Subhan was silent for a few moments, then he looked at me with soft eyes. What are your plans when this is all over? Will you live in this stone villa as a landlord? I looked out at the horizon and smiled slightly. This is just the beginning, the 3 years I lost. Now I will fill them in a more meaningful way. I looked at her. Bangan, will you still help me? The swan said nothing, just smiled and shook his head. Her eyes were shining like crystals. I knew that rotten dark past was slowly fading from my life but like the rising morning sun, a new life was slowly emerging in the Lin family. Given that the evidence was suppressed 3 years ago as soon as it was officially added to the case file, the truth about the accident finally came out in front of the world. Hayden Ron and another person, sentenced to 4 years in prison on charges of manipulating a man to take guilt. On hearing the sentence, Senton sat down on the bench and said goodbye to him forever. It seemed that due to parental protection in Saelin's dramas, he would always be mine. Hiding behind the shadows, but he forgot that shadows also have an end. In the courtroom, my father was crying and beating his chest. My son was 4 years old. The one who graduated from a prestigious university, his life was ruined. Sanlin, how can you be so cruel being his elder brother? I slowly stood up and looked at Papa with calm eyes. Dad, the 3 years I spent in jail in his place. Then I never heard you speak against him even once. Now that he is just taking up his responsibilities, you are unable to tolerate it. My mother was crying almost unconsciously, and in a low voice she was telling me about the ruin of the family. But I didn't pay any attention. I walked straight out of the courtroom. The cold wind hit my face, but my heart. I felt a strange lightness for a while. Mr. Sen, Sayelin's sentence may be sentenced due to multiple charges, and as far as property disputes are concerned, he is completely close. I smiled slightly, but this is the beginning of my new life. Lawyer John, please contact young Master Lin. I want to start that investment plan. Mr. Sen, young Master Lin, this is Lawyer John. Mr. Sen wants to speak to you. After the family disaster was over, I was no longer immersed in the joy of revenge, but I accepted Lin Chen's invitation and officially entered the elite business circle. I sold 5 villas to become my initial capital. With that money, I wanted to build my own business empire. I wore a custom-made suit to the reception. My presence was now more steady and composed than ever before. Subangan, my business partner, was turning heads in an elegant evening gown. She was moving comfortably among the big business tycoons. She was talking with confidence and one by one, introducing me to influential people. Brother San, the one in front is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He is very interested in your old city renovation project. He wants to talk to you privately. I nodded slightly. Okay, looks like our first step was pretty strong. But just as we were about to move on, an unexpected visitor suddenly stood in our way. Just as we were about to move on, an unexpected visitor blocked our way. He was a famous real estate tycoon in Haiyan City. Mr. Zhou, he said with a sarcastic smile, twirling his wineglass. Mr. Sen, you've been causing quite a stir lately. You are having a serious conflict with your family. Harmony is most important in business. If you can stand up against your own parents, then who will comfortably cooperate with you? I looked at him calmly. Mr. Zhou, your information is quite strong. But I do it based on business rules and boundaries. People who don't have any boundaries themselves are not even worthy of cooperating with me. Mr. Zhou's face instantly turned sour, and the businessmen standing nearby also turned their gaze away. It was clear that he was re-evaluating my strengths and capabilities. But I didn't let this small incident affect my rhythm. I knew the road ahead was still very long. Competitors like Mr. Zhou were just the tip of the iceberg. 3 days later I again received an invitation from Mr. Zhou. After much thinking, I finally accepted the meeting. As soon as I walked in, I saw Mr. Zhou sitting on the leather sofa. He was twirling 2 jade balls in his hand and had that same hypocrite smile on his face. As if someone else's destiny is in his control. He thought the scandal was created by my greedy parents. He will take advantage of this and force me to abandon the old city renovation project. I went and sat comfortably in front of her. Su Bongwen was standing behind me. She gently placed a thick envelope full of documents on the marble table. The sound of the envelope falling was deep and heavy. Like a warning bell, Mr. Zhou looked at me contemptuously. He exhaled a smoke ring and said in a dismissive tone, Mr. Sen, what have you decided? Online news hasn't calmed down yet. If you transfer that land to me, I guarantee that from tomorrow all the journalists will disappear and you will be a successful businessman again. I put down the cup. He smiled slightly and gestured to Su Bongwen. Mr. Zhou, maybe you forgot where I spent those 3 years. The most important thing I learned at that place was, never give in to threats. Su Bongguan opened the envelope. Inside Mr. Joki's illegal demolitions, tax evasion, there was solid evidence from many other bribery cases. All this information was obtained by Lin Chen from the Lin family's intelligence network overnight. I said in a calm voice, Mr. Zhou, if I give all this to the Economic Investigation Squad, will your company? Will she be able to survive till then? Mr. Zhou's smile instantly froze. The jade balls in his hands collided with each other, making a loud crackling sound. Beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. His arrogance had crumbled in the face of all the evidence. Mr. San, we are both businessmen, there is no need to go so far. Isn't it? I stood up slowly. I adjusted my suit and gave a confident smile. The fish may die, but my net will not break. Mr. Zhao, I don't want to turn you into an anime either. Otherwise, the next meeting will be in the courtroom only. I walked out of the hall without looking back. Behind him, Mr. Zhou collapsed onto the sofa like a pile of mud. The storm in the business world had calmed down for the time being. But the real tests that life had prepared for me had just begun. 6 months later, Sayelin gave birth to a son in the prison hospital as Sanidin. And Sayelin were both serving prison sentences. and the family on the other side was considering that child as a burden. After many detours, the little boy finally reached my study room. I was looking at that little life lying in the cradle with complex eyes. What should it be named? Sailin didn't choose a name. The birth certificate has a blank space for it. Subongwon looked at me. Brother Sen, have you really decided to adopt this child? This means that you will remain connected to the shadows of both those people throughout your life. There was concern in his eyes. I looked at the child. He extended his little finger and held Subongwon's finger tightly. I smiled softly. He didn't have a choice, but I did. I picked up the baby. His name would be Seninian, in memory of that dead family affection and myself, to remind me to never make the same mistake again. Despite facing criticism from outside, I officially completed the adoption process of Niner, so that he can get a calm and stable environment. I slowed down the pace of my business expansion. D and Subengan Wan also turned down several high-paying offers. Time passed very quickly as I became the gentlest guardian of this house. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye. The ginkgo trees in the villa garden first turned yellow, then green again. 3 years of summer and winter quietly slipped through my fingers. Junior was once a diaper-wearing baby. Now she had become a little girl who walked around with her school bag. She would run after me with her tiny legs and call me Papa, Papa. Auntie Bangon said, "Today she will take me to zoo, let's go quickly." Seeing Niner so happy melted my heart. I picked him up in my arms and touched his nose lovingly. "Okay, Papa and Auntie Banguan will take you." This 3-year-old's elegance was sometimes broken by some harsh sounds. Every few months my parents would come out to the villa area. Money was always needed in prison. Sometimes Sunidin needed money for bribes inside, sometimes for Sayelin's medical expenses. At that time my father would again bang the iron gate and shout. His old voice was still as poisonous as ever. "Senglin, you're raising an ungrateful person. And your own brother is suffering in jail, don't you even go to see him? You don't have a heart." I am standing on the second-floor balcony, looking at that man from above. "I was the one I once respected. My voice was as cold as ice. The pension I gave you. I give you that. That is enough for a normal life. As far as the Saniten is concerned, that is his own. It is his mistake. No one else will suffer the punishment." I closed the window and let his abuses go out. She remained in my arms, laughing loudly. In these 3 years, she was my most. It was a great relief. While in prison, Senton sat in a corner, scared, holding a broken iron tray. Johad used to hold the admission letter of a prestigious university. Now it is due to hard labor. His cellmates were covered in blisters from goosebumps, throwing leftover food into his tray. "Hey, you are the same genius who sent his elder brother to jail in his place. What happened today?" He is thinking of eating without cleaning the floor. Senton's body is trembling with fear. He woke up with his eyes filled with fear. "I'll do it right now," he said, immediately putting down the tray and picking up the mop like a beaten dog. He thought prison would be just a change of sleeping place. But the rules there were even more cruel than the outside world. He tried to get protection inside using my name. My elder brother is Senglin. He is very rich. I don't need anyone's protection. Before he could finish his sentence, he was slapped hard. The person in front had direct content in his eyes. Contempt for a person who was selfish to the core. Your elder brother Senglin Wo richest. And you, the animal who betrays your own brother. You are not even worthy of taking his name. From today onwards you will sit on your knees here. Santon collapsed onto the sewage-filled floor, closing his eyes. He finally began to understand the helplessness I felt in prison, but the difference was, I went to protect someone and he was just paying for his sons. Soon news of Sanedin's condition in prison reached my parents. But instead of reflecting on the mistakes of the Senate, they put the entire blame on me. They thought I wasn't using my contacts. My father came back into my life for his little son. Clothes that hadn't been changed for days, a putrid smell, and a heavy voice filled with anger. "Senglin, look how your brother is doing in jail. He even broke one of his ribs and you are here eating and drinking comfortably." I replied without changing my expression. This was the path he had chosen himself. 3 years ago, when I was going through all this, you were the one who told me. An elder brother is like a father. Learn to tolerate it. Then suddenly my mother came out from behind the flowers. Then the same old drama. She falls on the ground and creates a ruckus. I wanted to do it, but this time I didn't give it a chance. I pointed it directly at the security staff. The mother started screaming, "Everyone, look, he wants to kill his parents." I didn't care about my brother's life or death. I looked at him coldly. The last bit of tenderness left in my eyes vanished. "The bastard you're talking about is the biological son of Cetaceans and Sayelan. If you cause drama here again, I'll send lawyer to jail so the Senate will know. How are his parents treating his only son?" My mother's voice suddenly stopped, and she stared at me like a strangled old hen. They didn't know that Niner was the child of Senton and Sayelan. At that moment both of us froze in place. A sarcastic smile appeared on my lips. I turned to go inside, but my father stopped me. There was cautious hope and flattery in his voice. Sholan let me see the child. I walked into the house without looking back. I absolutely won't let them near Niner. I don't trust these people. Subanagar stood holding the sleeping Niner in her lap. The light shining on the door was the same house I wanted to protect. Ever since Celine gave birth to Niner in the custody hospital, due to the post-mortem cold and heavy mental pressure, he developed a serious chronic disease. The woman who earlier only thought about wearing gold and silver and living a luxurious life. Now she lay weak on the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. His hair had turned dry and yellow, a result of chronic blood and nutritional deficiencies. Her cheeks had sunken in, so much, so that even getting up to drink a little water was extremely difficult. Although the guards were taking care of her as per the rules, the cold feeling of that institution only increased her loneliness. Quote, "The child, where is that child? My mother, where did my mother take him?" The nurse standing beside her didn't answer, just kept changing the drip. Shailene didn't know that her mother, who loved money more than life, had already abandoned the child as a burden. She didn't even know that the brother she used to insult by calling him a labor reform criminal had now become the child's last hope. A bitter tear rolled from the corner of Shailene's eyes. Her voice was filled with resentment. "Senton, are you laughing at me? They reached this state. Be happy now?" Her regret wasn't for harming others, but for losing the life of luxury she could have had. Under this twisted mental torture, her illness kept returning, the doctor said. This chronic illness will likely haunt her for the rest of her life. Sunlight streamed in through the window bars, casting mottled shadows on the floor. Xiaolin closed her eyes, her mind replaying the days of enjoying life in my cash-paid apartment. But in the end, those days were just a dream, a place she could never return. When my parents found out I had adopted Niner, they finally understood the situation. You know what? They couldn't trust Senton and Celine anymore. If they completely upset me, would be forced to beg on the streets. So, when they learned Celine was seriously ill, they didn't come with reporters to make a scene like before. But their attitude changed. My father sat hunched over the edge of the sofa, nervously rubbing his hands on his thighs. My mother was constantly wiping away tears, and they both glanced at me furtively, as if they were children who had made a mistake. Xiaolin, Dad admits we were fools before, we hurt you. Now your brother is in jail and Kaylin is battling a chronic illness in the hospital. Our family can only depend on you now. Yes, Xiaolin, Mom regrets it every day. We shouldn't have done that to you back then. Salin's illness is costing a lot of money. Look, if it's just for Niner, give him some help. I put down the report in my hand and looked at them coldly. Their belated humility didn't make me happy, but instead seemed even more ironic. If I were that poor ex-convict who had just gotten out of jail, would they be speaking to me so gently? Are they afraid I'd stop paying her pension? Or do they really think that Salin deserves pity? My father's face twisted slightly. A glint of shame flashed in his eyes, but he immediately smiled. Quote, "What are you talking about? You're our own son. Of course we want the family to be well. If Salin's illness doesn't get better, what will we say to Niner when he grows up?" Just then, Subengin Wan came down the stairs, carrying Niner in her arms. Seeing this scene, Niner instinctively clung to his chest. "Brother Sen, give Niner her own. We need a nappy." As for Celine's medical expenses, the lawyer says we'll only have to pay a small portion if we follow the legal process. My mother panicked upon hearing the legal procedure, but didn't dare raise her voice. She just looked at me expectantly, a calculating anxiety clearly visible in her eyes. She said softly, "Shayavali, don't listen to that lawyer. He's an outsider. We're family. Treat this as charity. Help Celine." Mom, watching them degrade themselves to survive like this. The last bit of courage I had left in my heart slowly began to fade. They hadn't gotten better, they had only gotten weaker, and I was wondering how to end this redemption drama and what to do. Before I could decide, I received the news that, due to prolonged mental distortion and recurring physical illness, she had breathed her last, alone, in the detention hospital, one cold, dark night. She couldn't even see the child again, and she couldn't wait for Senton to come out of prison. Shortly after, Senton was released from prison. 4 years in prison had completely shattered his self-respect, but only intensified the violence within him. When he left the prison gates, his white-haired parents were already waiting there. They didn't reflect on Senton's crimes, but instead sold every last piece of property in the village to support their beloved little son. But Senton was no longer the person they knew. The talented and polite student was gone. Senton kicked the luggage bag his parents had given him. His eyes icy cold. "You've only brought me this poor man's money? You've lived a comfortable life all this time, and you're giving me this dilapidated hut to live in." Xiao Ten, Dad and Mom have no abilities. All the money went into your and Linlin's treatment. Let's settle down first. Tomorrow, Dad will find work at a construction site. Mom will work as a maid, and we'll definitely be able to support you. Senton laughed contemptuously and looked at his bowed parents. There was no trace of gratitude in his eyes, only entitlement. In prison, he had learned to oppress the weak and fear the strong. And now the weakest people in the world were his own parents. Hurry up and don't mention that man Senglin's name in front of me. When I get well, I'll settle my accounts with him sooner or later. His parents looked at each other and followed him in fear. They thought they had found support again, but didn't realize they had brought a darkness into their home that could never be eradicated. Shortly after his release, Senton was diagnosed with a terminal illness. The torment of the illness drove him even more insane. He, tired from work, beating his parents who returned, swearing at the slightest thing he didn't like. "Why is my life so miserable? Are you trying to poison me to save money? Get out of here and earn money. I want to eat meat, I want to drink alcohol." Shouten, Azama has worked 12 hours a day. "We really don't have any money. And don't mention your brother. He's blocked us all. This is fate, the fate we chose ourselves." That life was completely different from the hellish life there. My life was now entering a life of happiness I had never experienced before. After taking back all my properties, I handed over the business to a professional team to manage. I started focusing my energy on my family and, one beautiful, sunny day, I married my Bangwan. That very day, Nir came running, with a perfect exam score in hand. "Mom Bangwan, Dad, Mom Bangwan, look, I came first." Bangwan lovingly wiped the sweat from Nir's forehead and looked at me with hopeful eyes. "Brother Sen, tomorrow we'll take Nir on a beach vacation. Let him relax a little too. I need to do it." I took the report card and picked up Nir in my arms. My eyes were filled with joy and love. Well, as you say, as long as the family is together, any place is good. Sometimes I would get news of that family through the lawyer. I heard that Santon was screaming in pain there. I heard that his parents were regretting it in jail. But now it didn't matter to me. The sun was spread on Will's lawn. Nir's smile was clear and happy. I held Bangun's hand, feeling the warmth of his palm. Only a person who has gone through darkness understands the true value of the light in front. This life is still long and our happiness has just begun.